Rangers could be heading into stormy waters this summer as a major dilemma begins to take shape behind the scenes at Ibrox. One of the club's standout performers is now at the center of mounting interest from a European heavyweight, and the timing couldn't be worse. With Russell Martin still settling into life as the new boss and already putting the pieces in place for what promises to be a make-or-break campaign, this kind of distraction is exactly what he doesn't need. But the truth is it's already landed right on his doorstep. The club's hierarchy had made it clear that the idea was to build around the core talents already within the squad, keep the key players, add smart reinforcements, and launch into the season with momentum. That plan now faces its first real test. The player in question is Nico, Rascin, a name that's grown in stature ever since his arrival from Standard Liège. The Belgian midfielder, just 24 years old, has been a driving force in the center of the park, turning in performances that haven't gone unnoticed beyond the Scottish borders. Now, with pre-season in full swing and Champions League qualifiers on the horizon, Real Betis have reportedly stepped forward with serious intent. The Spanish club, fresh off a strong campaign in La Liga and a deep run in the UEFA Conference League, are in the market for midfield reinforcements, and Rascin fits the bill. The timing couldn't be more sensitive, especially considering Betis are on the verge of losing two major figures in their squad. Johnny Cardoso is already packing his bags for Atletico Madrid, while William Carvalho, a seasoned veteran and Euro 2016 winner, is also set to depart. That leaves a massive gap in the engine room, and it seems Manuel Pellegrini has his eyes fixed on Glasgow for a solution. From a Rangers perspective, the interest is flattering, but also a problem. Rascin isn't just another player. He's a cornerstone of Russell Martin's rebuild, someone the manager views as a key part of the system he's trying to implement. His energy, vision, and ability to dictate the tempo have made him a fan favorite, and the idea of losing him now is a serious blow. The Ibrox board knows it too. That's why they're reportedly preparing to put a new and improved contract on the table, one designed to keep the midfielder in blue for the long haul. Talks have been ongoing behind the scenes, and while nothing is signed, yet there's a growing urgency to get it done before Betis come knocking with a formal offer. The concern, of course, is that every day without a deal increases the chances of Rascin being tempted by the lure of La Liga and the chance to play under a manager like Pellegrini. It's the kind of situation that tests a club's resolve. On one hand, holding firm and keeping your best players sends a strong message, especially to supporters who are eager to see progress after a mixed run last season. On the other hand, if the right offer comes in, and we're talking serious money here, it can be hard to say no, particularly when you've got a squad to build and finances to balance. Russell Martin, for his part, has made no secret of his admiration for Rascin. He's spoken openly about the importance of having a solid spine in the team, and the Belgian fits that role perfectly. Losing him now would force a rethink at the worst possible time, especially with European qualifiers approaching and the pressure already mounting. But Rascin isn't the only name making headlines around Ibrox. In another twist to the summer transfer window, Rangers are also looking south once again, with reports suggesting a fresh raid on Sheffield Wednesday is in the works. Russell Martin, who already brought in J.D. Jimmers from the Yorkshire club, is now eyeing young goalkeeper Piers. The Northern Irish shot-stopper is just 19, but has caught the eye with a string of composed performances, and it's believed he's high on the list of targets to strengthen the goalkeeping department. Martin had previously made it clear that he wanted to bolster the position, especially after rotating between Liam Kelly and Jack Butland during the early stages of pre-season. A loan move for Brighton's Carl Rushworth was explored, but ultimately didn't materialize, leaving the door open for Charles to potentially make the move to Glasgow. Of course, convincing Charles to leave Hillsborough might not be so straightforward. The keeper has 2 years left on his current deal and has publicly stated he's happy where he is. In an interview last month, he even said that nothing could make him leave Wednesday right now. But in football, things can change quickly. Rangers offer European football a bigger stage and the chance to work under a manager with a clear vision. Those factors could prove persuasive, especially if Wednesday's ongoing financial issues force their hand. The club has already had to part ways with several senior players to balance the books, and there's a sense that Charles might be next in line for a move whether he likes it or not. Meanwhile, another potential addition to the Rangers squad is hanging in the balance. Cody, the experienced England defender, has long been on the radar, and a move seemed to be edging closer. The 32-year-old is currently with Leicester City, but with the club in financial difficulties and looking to offload players, there was hope that Cody would be allowed to make the switch north in time to feature in the crucial Champions League qualifiers. That plan, however, has hit a snag. Despite being keen on the move, Cody has not yet been given the green light to leave, and instead he's joined the Leicester squad for their preseason tour in Austria. That means Russell Martin could be without the veteran center-back when Rangers face Panathinaikos in the first leg of the second qualifying round. The deadline to register players for the European fixture is fast approaching, and unless something changes quickly, Cody will miss out. Not just on the first leg, but potentially the second as well, given UEFA's strict registration rules. There's still a small window to include late additions, but time is tight, and the process isn't always straightforward. The frustrating part for Rangers is that they've already laid much of the groundwork for this deal. Cody has been identified as a leader who can bring experience, composure, and a winning mentality to the dressing room. Martin sees him as the ideal complement to the younger defenders already in the squad, like Leon Balogun and Manny Perez. Missing out on him, even temporarily, would be a blow. Speaking of setbacks, the squad has also been hit by an injury concern at just the wrong time. New signing Theo Asgard, brought in to add creativity and flair to the final third, is now a doubt for the first leg against Panathinaikos after picking up a thigh injury in a behind-closed-doors friendly against Dunfermline. The Norwegian attacker had been settling in well, showing flashes of the quality that convinced the club to bring him in from Luton Town. Scans are set to take place to determine the severity of the injury, but early signs suggest he may not be fit in time for the crucial European tie. While the injury doesn't appear to be long-term, missing a fixture of this magnitude is frustrating for both player and manager. Martin had hoped to use Asgard as a wild card, someone who could unlock tight games with a moment of magic. Now he may have to turn to other options. All of this comes as the deadline for Champions League squad registration looms. Rangers must submit their list by 11 o'clock on Thursday night, and they're required to include at least 8 locally trained players within their 25-man roster. It's a balancing act, trying to manage injuries, late transfers, and the push to secure top talent like Rascin, all while preparing for a tie that could define the early stages of the season. The stakes couldn't be higher. Qualifying for the group stage doesn't just bring prestige. It delivers a financial windfall and the kind of exposure that can change a club's trajectory. Russell Martin knows that better than anyone. So here we are, just days away from one of the biggest fixtures of the summer, and Rangers find themselves juggling multiple high-stakes scenarios. A key player at risk of being poached, a transfer target caught in limbo, a promising new signing picking up an untimely knock, and a deadline looming like a shadow over the entire operation. It's all happening at once, and how the club navigates the next few days could have lasting consequences for the months ahead. While the spotlight is rightfully on the situation surrounding Nico Rascin, the broader picture at Rangers this summer is one of immense pressure, expectation, and urgency. The club stands at a delicate crossroads, not only in terms of transfers and squad registration, but in identity and ambition. Russell Martin was brought in not just to coach a football team, but to lead a cultural reset, to bring back the fire, the discipline, and the clear playing identity that so often defined Rangers at their best. But to do that, he needs time, backing, and a core group of players who buy into the vision and are committed to the long haul. That's why losing someone like Rascin would sting far beyond what happens on the pitch. It would send a message, one that maybe the project is still vulnerable to the financial realities of modern football. And that's the uncomfortable truth no one really wants to speak about out loud. Scottish football, for all its passion and heritage, is constantly playing catch-up with the financial giants on the continent. When a club like Real Betis comes in flashing La Liga, exposure, European pedigree, and financial incentives, it becomes incredibly difficult to compete. Rangers can offer tradition, a massive fan base, and the chance to make history. But sometimes for young, ambitious players, the idea of facing Barcelona, Real Madrid, or Sevilla on a weekly basis carries a weight that few can resist. And make no mistake, Rascin has earned that kind of attention. His form last season, particularly in the high-pressure moments, showed a maturity and consistency that marked him out as someone destined for more than just domestic glory. The challenge now is whether Rangers can offer him enough to convince him that staying in Glasgow is still the right step for his career. Russell Martin, despite being new to the role, is under no illusions. He knows what's at stake. Every day, without clarity over Raskin's future, is a day where preparations are clouded by uncertainty. It affects training, it affects planning, it affects the squad morale. Players are aware when a key teammate might be on the way out, and it inevitably alters the energy around the dressing room. That's why the club is desperate to wrap this situation up, either by securing a contract extension or by cashing in for a figure that allows proper reinvestment. There's no room for gray areas anymore. Martin needs to know what tools he has at his disposal, and he needs to know now. Away from the Rascin saga, the search for defensive solidity continues to dominate the club's agenda. The need for reinforcements at the back is crystal clear, not just for depth, but for leadership. Cody was supposed to be the answer to that. With years of Premier League experience, a commanding voice, and a reputation as a top professional, he was seen as the ideal figure to marshal the backline during what will undoubtedly be a high-pressure campaign. But football rarely plays out in straight lines. With Leicester hesitating and Cody now away on tour, the possibility of having him ready for the first leg against Panathinaikos looks increasingly slim. And that's not a minor issue. European qualifiers are never simple affairs. The margins are razor thin, and the first leg sets the tone. Having someone like Cody at the back would provide stability, experience, and calm in the chaos. Without him, Russell Martin is left leaning on either less experienced options or defenders who are still learning the intricacies of his system. It's a big ask, especially when you factor in the pressure of expectation from the Ibrox crowd, who will demand not just a result, but a performance worthy of the badge. The window to complete the deal is still open, but time is running out. Martin and the board have to push hard to make something happen before it's too late. Because if Cody can't be registered in time, he becomes unavailable for both legs. That's 2 opportunities lost, and potentially a spot in the next round of the Champions League gone with it. And while Rangers are doing their best to strengthen the back, they're also trying to avoid unexpected gaps opening elsewhere. Theo Asgard's injury is a classic case of the kind of unpredictability that makes squad depth so vital. The Norwegian was signed with high hopes, not necessarily to be the star man from the off, but to provide creative spark and flair in games where tight defenses needed unlocking. His performances in training and friendlies had started to turn heads, and there was a quiet optimism around the club that he could become a difference maker. That momentum now takes a hit. A thigh strain might not seem like the end of the world, but at this stage of the season, even a 1 or 2 week absence can be disruptive, especially when you're preparing for high-stakes European ties. The medical team is working to get him back as quickly as possible, but the likelihood of him making the squad for Tuesday's first leg looks slim. That forces Martin to reshuffle. Perhaps someone like Tom Lawrence steps into that creative role, or maybe a more cautious midfield is deployed to compensate. Either way, it changes the dynamic, and at a time when the manager would have preferred consistency, he's being asked to adapt on the fly. This is what makes the job so difficult. You can have the tactics, the training ground sessions, the analysis, but when injuries and transfers start flying around, it's about how quickly you can pivot and keep the ship steady. And it's not just about the pitch. Off the field, the atmosphere around the club is one of tension mixed with excitement. There's a sense that something is building, a project with ambition, but also an underlying anxiety that it could all unravel if the key decisions aren't handled properly. The fans are watching everything closely. They've seen false dawns before. They've heard about rebuilds and long-term visions only for it to fall apart when the first big test arrives. This time they want substance, and they're right to demand it. This is a club with a massive history and a fan base that lives and breathes football. They deserve clarity, ambition, and above all, results. That's what makes this summer so critical. Every move, every injury update, every quote from Russell Martin or a player agent, it all carries weight. One misstep and the momentum disappears. But get it right, and Rangers could be looking at a season where not only do they compete for domestic silverware, but they re-establish themselves as a force in Europe. That's the dream. To see Ibrox under the lights packed to the rafters with the Champions League anthem ringing out and a team on the pitch that the supporters can believe in. That's what this rebuild is all about. And that's why keeping someone like Rascin, or replacing him properly if he goes, matters so much. It's the same with the goalkeeper situation. Bringing in a young talent like Piers isn't just about filling a spot on the bench. It's about planning for the future, about ensuring that if Jack Butland moves on in the future, or if injuries strike, the club has a capable, confident replacement already integrated into the system. Charles might only be 19, but the reports from Sheffield speak highly of his maturity, his shot-stopping, and his presence in the box. If Rangers can convince him to make the move, it could prove to be a shrewd piece of business. But again, time is of the essence. Wednesday won't hold on forever, and if the financial situation forces them to sell, other clubs could swoop in. This is where the front office needs to show its sharpness, being proactive instead of reactive, making the deals before the panic sets in. Martin has identified his targets, but now it's about execution. There's no room for hesitation. Whether it's closing out the Rascin renewal, finalizing Cody's, securing Piers, or preparing for life without Asgard next week, every decision matters. Because come Tuesday night, when the whistle blows and Panathinaikos line up across the pitch, none of the speculation will matter anymore. It'll be about who's ready, who's fit, who's mentally switched on, and whether this new-look Rangers can deliver when it counts most. That's what the supporters want to see. Not promises, but performances. Not plans, but points. And with the season just around the corner, the time for talk is running out. Now it's about action. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. There's a growing murmur around Ibrox these days, and it's got the name Cyriel Dessers stamped all over it. Word on the street is that the Nigerian forward may well be on his way out of Rangers, and it's no longer just quiet talk among fans in the concourses. While there's been no official confirmation from the club, sources close to the player have hinted at a potential move, fueling speculation that Dessers' time in Glasgow may be drawing to a close. It all started with a cryptic social media post from the striker himself, in which he seemed to hint at a farewell. The message was brief, nothing more than a thank you to the fans and a blue heart emoji. But in today's digital age, that's more than enough to spark a flurry of theories. Supporters and pundits alike have been dissecting every word, with many interpreting it as a goodbye message. Dessers arrived at Ibrox with high expectations and a reputation for finding the net. But his time in Govan has been something of a mixed bag. While he's shown flashes of quality, especially in the Europa League run, inconsistency and questions over his fit in the system have persisted. With Rangers undergoing a rebuild under Philippe Clement, there's a sense that the club could be looking to shake things up in the attacking department, and Dessers might be the first big name to make way. Several clubs from mainland Europe are reportedly monitoring the situation, with whispers of interest coming from Turkey and Belgium. It's said that Dessers would be open to a return closer to home, particularly if he's not guaranteed a regular starting place in Clement's plans moving forward. Of course, in the world of football, rumors are as common as rain in Glasgow. But this one's starting to feel like more than just idle gossip. The timing, the tone of Dessers' message, and the silence from the club all suggest that something might be brewing behind the scenes. For now, fans will be left speculating, but the signs are pointing to a possible summer exit. If the whispers prove true, Dessers' time at Rangers may be remembered as brief but eventful, and the Ibrox faithful may soon be bidding farewell to another familiar face. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comment section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.